Welcome back. Happy Wednesday. We are here with some more Roadwarden. Did not get that far yesterday. It's probably a long one just because it's a lot of story content, a lot of decisions, conversations, etc. So, back into it. This is just a starting menu. I guess it's kind of like a loading tip. For centuries, the corsairs of the 10 cities have pillaged the southern realms in search of copper, iron, and steel. Losing the war has made these resources more scarce than ever. Turn down the music a bit for you guys. Okay, so when we left off, we had just made it to one of the bigger inns. I think it's Pelt of the North, I believe was the inn was called. And, actually, what's this? Yeah. Okay, so it goes through the conversation we have, but, it's the whole conversation I've had with the innkeeper so far. We're just here. Yeah, Pelt of the North, that's what it's called. So we were talking to the innkeeper. We've asked some questions about what we should do, which I guess I can bring it back here. So there's a couple different villages we can go to. There's Howler's Dell, the one near the monastery, and the White Marshes. So the innkeeper says there's some strange people that live, all of them. So we'll have to see how strange. It looks like a lot of these people just kind of follow their own rules because they're so segregated. So, all right. And this, he wanted me to take care of some bandits. So ask him about that. He freezes, observing your hands silently. He wants me to get the answer from the mayor of Hallerston. Okay. I'm on it. I could eat something. Do you have any leftovers? Yes, I feed them to our boar. I won't give them away for nothing. He tells you to wait, then leaves the building for a few minutes and returns with a wooden bucket and a long stick ending with a hook. Go through the gate and turn left. You'll see a bunch of bushes. We need some berries. Bring me a bucket full. You'll be done in half an hour or so. Your horse could use a nap anyway, and I'll prepare something to fill you. The hook is not made of metal or wood. It's a long, curved claw, almost black. I reach with the tools. Half an hour? That's quite a lot for berry picking. The tools are cold, not too heavy. You notice a pair of thick gloves at the bottom of the bucket. Ah, the berries are not a problem, the innkeeper smirks. Unlike the snakes. Better scare them away with a stick, or remove them with a hook, and protect your hands. The little ones won't eat you, but don't get bitten. I'm sure you know how to be patient. Fine, I'll go right away. You step outside. Haas is enjoying some old hay. At this hour, the armorer's workshop is closed. I should go outside and forage for berries. The innkeeper knew what he was talking about. You put on the gloves and look through the bushes from a safe distance. It doesn't take long before you notice the first serpent lying on a rock somewhere in the thicket. The creatures are not that large, and even if some of them hiss at you or slither closer, the jabs of the hook keep them at a distance. You don't know much about these berries. They are round and reddish. You wouldn't trust such a color even if you were looking for food in the wilderness. The plants don't have thorns, but the leaves are harsh, so you make sure to thoroughly cover your skin with your clothes. You have to look through many bushes to fill the bucket, but the presence of insects and snakes doesn't allow you to relax. I gather the berries and go back to the inn. You've returned to the courtyard. 2 of the guards are participating in a friendly skirmish. The wrestling is accompanied by a crowd. Hey, Waterseer. I enter the inn. The locked windows make the air stuffy, and the weak fire in the stove hardly lightens up the hall. The innkeeper's mixing something in a pot at the stove. So, you again. Need anything? I put his fruits on the counter. Great! He peeks inside the bucket. I've got cabbage stew with a few goose chunks for you. I'd serve it even to merchants if there were any around. The meal is warm and filling. It's well seasoned and not overcooked. And like I've said, I rarely have food to spare, but feel free to ask if you ever stop by. You may be lucky, and I've been cooking my whole life. Thanks. And how did that old hook of mine work out for you? I see you still have your hands. I give him the hook. I'm fine. He takes the tools from you and nods. Need anything else? Don't really have anything to sell him. Any rumors worth sharing? He crosses his arms. I don't like to talk about people who ain't nearby. But you know what you're doing. Who are you wondering about? Oh, what's her name? Hang on. Oh, this is all just... I've talked to the innkeeper too much. That's all I have. Shoot. Yeah, I don't remember the lady I first talked to when I got here, but it's alright. Who else have we talked about? I don't know if I can back out of this, actually. There we go. We could ask about the Enchantress. Eudocia. Oh, Eudocia is crazy. She lives in a lonely house all by herself, skinny and dirty like a corpse eater surrounded by golems. Never smiles, never cries. One of those. She never leaves her home, and if you see it from far away, it looks abandoned. A few times a year, people travel to her and trade barrels of food for magical items. Okay. So she can't be that bad, right? Just lives by herself. That's all I need. I go outside. You step outside. Haas is enjoying some old hay. You hear the clinking of tools coming from the armorer's workshop. Head to the armorer. You walk past the well and find a small open shed, not unlike the stable, but with a humble set of tables, carving tools, hammers, sharpening stones, pincers, knives, and other tools. As long as something can be solved by brute force, this place will find a way to do so. There are two people sitting on a long bench. The first one is a male with maybe inch-long hair, a cleanly shaven face, a thin, long yellow tunic, bare legs, and sandals. He ignores your presence, sewing a gambeson with great concentration. The second person is a boy, maybe 15, who's wearing the crude outfit of a farmer. He glances at you, but soon returns to sharpening a long dagger. Greetings. The man raises his head, but it's the boy who speaks, focused on his task. He ain't talking. Tell him what it is you need. The man smiles in confirmation, looks at the piece of garment in his hands, then looks around, shrugs, and returns to you with a raised eyebrow. The youngster. Learning the trade, I see. Kind of, he answers reluctantly, but his teacher pats his knee, giving him a harsh look. The kid clears his throat. Yes. But we both ain't masters, you see. There's not a soul to teach us, so once I'm ready, I'll try hunting instead. Fixing things for others is boring. The man grunts a sound, though you don't understand it. Seeing your face, the boy chuckles. He said safe. Let's meet in the middle. Boring, but safe. The man nods. Maybe not right now, but I may be in need of your services. He nods, points at the laces in the front of your jacket, raises his clenched fingers to his shoulders, then gently spreads and lowers them as if he's taking off a robe. You follow his command and allow him to properly inspect your gambeson. After a few minutes, he gives it back, then reaches for his pouch. He pulls out one dragon bone, shrugs, then another one, and waves both of them in the air, pursing his lips. He makes a few speech-like noises with his empty mouth, groaning what sounds like, I don't know. Consider his offer. Okay. So, obviously, it's not torn yet, but It's good to know. Alright, I leave the shed. I guess I approach the guards and so I would leave. No, I have to travel. Huh. Okay. The woman in yellow armor is kneeling next to a brown, hairy boar, which is resting on its side. The beast is not as large as the dark ones from the forest. It responds to the touch of the human's hand and brush with grateful grunting and rapid twitches of a hind hoof. No matter how friendly it appears, it's still tethered to the well, and you have no doubts that its charge would leave Haas dead in a breath. When the woman notices you, she steps forward, to the boar's disappointment. So, the new Roadwarden. She points at a window with her chin, forestalling the question. We don't need anything now, but when we travel with our furs, we can use some assistance. She may be around 30, but her warm voice and bright smile are camouflaging the touch of time on her unpowdered face. Like many red-haired people with freckles, her skin is unhealthily pale. The boar runs up to her, observing your boots and fruitlessly sniffing for food beneath the beaten ground. She pats its back, but maintains her focus. How about a game or two? We have a bit of time and can talk a bit about this and that. Maybe you'll get a couple of coins, or lose one, she winks. We could play dice or throw axes at a target. Axe throwing? Show me what you've got. Your arrival, and especially the dragon bone you pull out, are cheerfully welcomed. The guards prepare a couple of wooden planks which are leaned against the wall. There are also spectators, and you're told that the other hunters are either sleeping or have duty on the tower. Remember, no magic, says one of the players. His face is deadly serious. There's going to be 4 participants in 8 rounds. You aim at the target drawn with charcoal. The person whose axe lands the closest to the center of the circle gets a point. Axes that fail to stay on the plank don't count. The person who has the most points at the end of the last turn becomes the winner. I blend in with the group. You talk a lot, but also don't say much. You share casual jokes, memories, and views on luck and optimal strategies. Haas and Tulia's camp are also brought up, but when you ask about the roads or the locals, their stories are vague. The drinks are here. It's a poor beer made from the leftovers after the regular brewing. It's cold, sweet, and doesn't reach your head, but you try to avoid the smell. Just don't spill anything, the boar may get sick, says the opponent with one arm. As a guest, you start with the first throw. Your axe flies well, hitting the very middle of the painted target and piercing the plank with a pleasant thud, which makes it really difficult for the other players to outperform you. A minute later, you've won the first round, but you can't expect to be that lucky every time. All I can do is try my best. After getting your 4th point, the other players nod with respect. Quite a score, you hear from the guard in yellow armor as she hands you your dragon bones. The other participants carry away the remaining planks. Alright. Okay, well, I mean, that was the right thing to choose. Being the fighter, I was obviously good at it. Have you ever been at the heart of the woods? We sometimes hunt south from there. There are good hunting grounds in the western half. The second one is too overgrown. Maybe the soil is different? She shrugs, then moves the hair away from her forehead. But it's a risky spot. There are treants there, and wolves, even the furless ones. And if you have to go through the tall grasses, watch out for what's on the ground. There ain't many archers in the trees. She smiles as if it's a joke, but there are all too many worms, even larger than a water leech. Tell me about yourself. Oh, what was that? After a brief giggle, her voice gets cold and serious. Nah, Roadwarden. We use names and stories among friends. You ain't one. Don't make me tempt curses. I was foraging for berries for the innkeep. She chuckles. So I've heard. Don't worry about it. Usually we forage by ourselves, but he wouldn't ask you for a dragon for a meal. He gives small jobs to people all the time, just to see who agrees to do them. Wants to judge who's of use and who's too proud for their own good. I have some questions about this place. Not much to tell, honestly. There are many beasts around, both wild game and dangerous monsters. We spend our time surrounded by these walls, leaving only to hunt, forage, or trade. That's an unusual tower. I'd expect it to be closer to the gate, and shorter. Like in Havlavon? Fair. But it ain't here to protect the gate. This stronghold was built long before we moved in, and not to fight off humans. The tower was meant to be used by those who observe the deep forest. We look out for fires, dragons, and any winged creatures that are looking to roost on the roof. Baldy, she nods towards a man who, indeed, is completely bald, has a great eye, and sees well even in darkness. Any interesting creatures living nearby? Ha! Here? Everything lives here. She flips her hair. I swear, we saw a few dragons, a unicorn family, a battle between trolls and goblins, faced 2 beastmen, oh, and a gargoyle, and a hunting queen shouts all the time. I could tell you all about them, but I won't. She winks and pats the boar on its head. You know, hunters have their secrets. Should probably ask about the necromancers. It's something new. Her voice lowers to a whisper. I've never been to the White Marshes, but over the years we've seen people moving away from there, south. They told us that the place has changed too much. A priest died, I think, and the new one awakens the dead. Sorry, Roadwarden, that's all I know. If she's hiding something, she sounds convincing. Alright. Thanks. She observed you with a hand casually resting on her hip. I walk away. Cool. Alright. Travel. Let's continue west. The road uphill meanders, slowing you down and forcing you to pay close attention not only to the shadows of the trees, but also to the tight rocky passages. You can't help but notice a few caves and fine ambush spots. I keep an eye out for any sign of life. Standing in front of the gate, you hear no voices, no tools at work, no steps. Dozens of birds live among the collapsed roofs. Their fluttering, singing, and squawking is free of worries. If you want to travel any further, you need to ride around the palisade. Searching the ruins may take a lot of time. The broken gate in the north will lead you to the village. The sound of a gentle river reaches you from the east, where you see a saggy fence surrounding an overgrown pasture. Behind the burnt building in the east, you see an oddly barren field. I approach the building near the field. The broken logs and planks are charred, while the wooden walls are rotten and covered in moss. You see no ashes or dust, proving that the fire happened long ago. The smell is awful, and there are no reasons to stay for long. You see no furniture, just some broken shelves. It was just a storage room. The valuable odds and ends were already taken by the scavengers. I take a closer look at the gate. The palisade is in good shape, and the entrance wasn't even touched by the fire. It was torn away, possibly thrown. The amount of used force must have been huge, but you'd expect that it would push the gate into the village, not away from it. You don't see any marks of a dragon bite. A troll could toss such planks, but after so many years, you see no paw prints. A mage? You can't really tell. I move forward. Where do you want to go? Southwest part of the village. The buildings, oh, I like that. It opens up on the actual map, like that up here. The buildings, some of which have collapsed, are made of wood, now charred and rotten. You spot claw marks on the walls, especially close to the doors and window frames. They could belong to a dragonling, or a large wolf, larger than the gray ones, or a corpse eater. Too many options to make a guess. Yet no beast remains in sight. You find the remains of clothes, furniture, odds and ends. Only one object seems to be of use, a basket-like fish trap made of vines and willow branches. If a large fish swims into it, it won't be able to get out on its own. It's quite large, but I can fit it on my saddle. You feel a slight aching in your stomach. Where do you want to go? Oh gosh, the melee maybe this is gonna make me sick. Let's go to the northwest part of the village. The colorful grass covers the entire fenced pasture. The large stone placed in the middle suggests it could be a playground for ibexes, or maybe it's just an old garden. You see a couple of small sheds, a latrine, and a single building to the south, completely burnt down. All of these places were cleaned out by scavengers. Haas doesn't want to approach the large ruins in the north. The terrible stench of feces and rotting food scares you off as well. The paths are covered with goblin footprints. It's daytime, so the pack should be asleep. If the beasts were active, they would try to scare you off, or to hunt down your mount. This is their territory, and once they wake up, you will face a furious enemy. I go somewhere else, quietly. Your stomach makes you let out a painful groan. Oh no. Let's go to the main square. In every village, the main square is the fanciest area, meant to charm the travelers, yet this is way more than you expected. The houses are as big as in Havlavan, and the paved ground took a lot of work and materials. The walls, now charred and riddled with holes, are made of an expensive coated wattle. The tiles for the roofs also had to be brought here from a different settlement. You peek inside the 3 smaller buildings, the rotting remains of their former splendor. The birds living in dozens of nests respond to your arrival with quite a commotion. You don't find even a single dragon bone, nor a tool or a piece of furniture left unbroken or unrotten. You're surrounded by bad smells, dirt, animal droppings, and garbage. The well also stinks. It has no bucket, but you'd be afraid to use it anyway. Who knows how many birds have relieved themselves inside, or how many old rats have found their death while climbing up the walls. Suddenly, you hear some sounds coming from the largest building. You stop and touch your aching stomach. I should check it out. I prepare my axe. It's probably a terrible idea, but... You step cautiously toward the scent of urine and sweat. The flickering candlelight shows you broken furniture, yet no signs of burnt wood. You consider pulling the other door when a masculine voice proves that your presence is not unnoticed. I didn't want it to come to this, but stay where you are. Whatever you put inside, be it a shoe, a hand, or your damn thinker, it'll get a bolt. Well, I don't want to necessarily get aggressive to start. Actually, kind of like that. I'm the new Roadwarden. Let's talk. A short pause. Well, we can talk, we can. But how is it that you chose this place to visit from all that there are? He goes on before you respond. It may be you're telling the truth, so let's say this. My little ballista here is all pulled and ready. But ye won't do anything stupid, right? No running, no jumping around, show your hands. The man's voice lacks confidence, and his accent is tricky for you. It is tricky for me. He could be from the distant south, but as long as you don't speak too quickly, you understand one another. You don't hear any other movements, breathing, voices. You lean your axe against the doorframe and make sure that your knife is well hidden. I walk inside. The dense smell of urine hits you with full force, while the tools and utensils are hard to distinguish from the rubbish. The route to the upper floor is blocked by the collapsed roof and loose wooden beams. There are scraps of rusting iron and steel on the ground, detached from now destroyed barrels. The scavenger is sitting on a blanket in front of the tent, pointing at the floor with his loaded crossbow. Not a short man, though a bit skinny. He's tanned, dark-haired, and has seen his share of struggles. There are long claw scars on his left cheek, and another one that would divide his eyebrow in half if it hadn't been consumed by a fire, just like the rest of his forehead. His clothes are untainted by vanity. He's barefoot, in a dirty linen shirt with rolled-up sleeves and simple pants that use a cord for a belt. His long beard and hair are untrimmed and tangled. I stand near the door, watching his weapon, unprepared. He follows your gaze. Not a good way to make the air warmer, eh? I try to be safe, that's all, and I can't let you stay in my shelter. You better ride ahead. I already piled up whatever hasn't rotten. The candlelights are dancing on his burnt face and arms. I saw your horse. Maybe you could help me, What are you looking for in this place? You don't sound like you're from the north. Looking for another Roadwarden, a man known as Asterion. I've never met him, but I surely heard this name many times. He vanished long before I got to the coast. At first people were asking about him, now they think he's dead. Listen, he scratches his thighs nervously. I'm hungry. So damn hungry. I can't hunt or fish with all the 8 men around. Can you share anything, Roadster? I may be a drifter, but I wouldn't beg if I had not lost my bags on the road. Take these cereals and crackers. With some water, you'll have a gruel. He lets out a relieved breath. Aye, I may even boil it. After a moment of hesitation, he grabs a cracker. Without ya, I would have to run after birds with my ballista. But I need to save the bolts for the 8 men, and because of those stinkers, I can't roast here, and raw meat makes me want to puke. Think ye. After a couple of solid bites, he puts your gifts in 2 wooden bowls. Now, Roadster, he says with a full mouth, if you have questions, ask. I'll say a lot to make you get me out of here. Should ask him what he wants. Where do you want to travel to now, and what will you give me for my help? Let me explain first, eh? I was in Hallersden, the closest village to the east and north, and people there are nice, you know. Not like in old Pagos. They're all boring and grimmer than a crow. But they cry coin for everything. Damn good coin. I left. Wanted to look around the ruins, see if there's anything left. Then moved to Pelt and hire the hunters to help me here. No luck. A bunch of griffs jumped my packbird. I just bought it. He spits on the floor. Fast and nimble, but not brave enough to listen to me when all that screeching and scratching started. So it ran away with my bags. A few fell on the ground and I pulled them here. But you see how it is. I won't travel around with a tent on my back. He taps the crossbow with his fingers. I need maybe a day more. Aye, just a day, and I'll have all the iron scraped from the barrels so I can move forward. But I can't take all my stuff alone, and without me around, the 8 men are going to break in and steal all my shit. I need to stay here, but since you have a horse, come back tomorrow and help me return to Hallersdell. How about it? I just need to know that the road is safe. Safe as it can be, I mean. What exactly do you want me to do? I need you to make sure there's no danger hiding on the road, from here to Howlers. Or rather, I know there is some danger. But as long as you can get there and safely return, I'm sure we can handle some roaming monsters. He theatrically rubs his hands together. This ballista has hit more beast skulls than I have fingers, and I've never lost a finger, Roadster, only the toes. Maybe to prove it, he starts to count on his fingers. So, see if the road there is clear, then come here tomorrow. We'll pack my stuff on your horse and move out. But don't come when it's close to evening. We're going to need 3 hours on our feet, and I won't push through the night. Even sleeping next to an 8-man tribe is safer, he chuckles. And don't make me wait for too long. I can wait for a couple of days if I find some food. But if you don't get back, I'll have to risk it no matter what. Why Hallersden? If you want to go south, we should travel to the Pelt of the North. I mean, I see a point, but I've never been there. Can they afford my iron? Do they have means to pay for it? I need coins to find a handy bunch that will walk south with me, and I need a new staff and bolts. I know the village. It's a nice place and even has a smithy of sorts. I had a chance to look, though. It's a large inn, a safe one. They seem to be rich and have enough hunters to guide you south. You can use iron to barter. Well, it's a shorter path, I guess. Fewer spots to get surrounded by corpsers. If you're sure it's the best option, fine. I'll trust a Roadster's judgment. I don't work for free. I have ways to pay ye, don't you worry. I can give you dragons, but I have to sell the iron first, so I'll need a bit of time, you see. 5 for a short escort would be plenty, I'd say. But if you want, I'll give you a secret jar of mine, a very fine mixture that scares 8 men away. Works on pebblers, too. When you ask if all this stench of urine is somehow related to this potion, he just winks and chuckles. Fine, it's a deal. I'm going to escort you. Thanks, Roadster. Just come tomorrow. I'll make it worth your time. Okay. Are you sure there's no undead around? He nods. I've seen none. People say it's been less than 10 years since the herds came here, but I don't know if anyone bothered with raising the pyres. If not, the dead are all roaming in the forest now. He clicks his tongue with frustration. It may be that there's a walker somewhere under the debris, waiting to break through like a dragon in an egg. He looks straight at you. Aye, you'd better not dig. Have you searched the entire village? Are there no hidden treasures left? You came to the wrong place. Time, moisture, and the damn boars devoured all the loot. I've been here for a couple days now, and all that's left is this iron I carried here. I was planning to get back here with some hired muscle and clear the collapsed buildings, but I doubt it's worth the time and risk. I've heard about some bandits. Have you seen any hideouts nearby? Nah, I think they're in the north or east. I stuck to the western road, and no shell bothered me. Sorry, I can't help ye. Time for me to leave. The closer you are to the village and the longer you stay around, the sicker you feel. The taste of gastric juices hits your mouth. Your forehead hurts. You start to stumble. Haas, worried by the sight, pokes your head with its nose. Walk far away from the walls. Leaning on your mount, you go outside, keeping your mouth shut. After a few minutes, your eyes get clearer. It may be better to leave, or at least stay away from the village for the rest of the day. You stop and touch your aching stomach. Where do you want to go? We should just... I inspect the fields in the southwest. You're surrounded by what looks like a field plowed in late autumn, disturbed by hundreds of rains and snowfalls. There's a few clumps of grass and wheat, but a place like this one, abandoned for years, should already have turned itself into a green lea. A barren field? Maybe it was overused, but you would still expect the weeds to sprout. A curse? The path leading west from here ends at the edge of the field, shifting into a meadow, then a forest. In the north, you see a path leading around the palisade. I don't have a way to investigate. I inspect the pasture in the southeast. You don't find a single sign of the livestock that lived here in the past. Any bones, horns, antlers, or dung have already been devoured by the wilderness. The pasture ends at the river. On the opposite bank, the meadow turns into a thick forest, impenetrable for a rider. What are the chances that a herd of defenseless animals could get there and survive? The breach in the southern fence wasn't made by some brute force. You find axe cuts in the spots that were ultimately broken away. After all these years, there are no tracks that you could follow. The pain in your stomach slows you down. Yeah, let's leave. Wait, we can't. Inspect the palisade. The tracks of human footwear and many, many more ape footprints cover the path formed around the palisade's breach. As far as you can tell, the freshest footprints lead to the village. The wooden stakes spread on the ground are rotten, covered in mushrooms, small flowers, insects, and worms. A good source of animal or goblin food, though you'd expect them to also hunt for the birds and eggs. The meadow in the west turns into a forest quickly. The grasses in the north surround dozens of tree stumps, already covered with moss and fungi. Going south, you'll reach a large field, though you don't see any crops. I shouldn't enter the forest, especially not in this area. It's unpredictable. I inspect the clearing in the west. The meadow is lush and colorful, and so dense it's unsafe for a rider. For a couple of minutes, you lead Haas with a rope, avoiding the potential disaster in case of a hoof falling into an animal den. Being forced to travel around the palisade every time you get here is going to be a pain. Most of the tree trunks look similar and have a comparable size. They were most likely planted with the sole purpose of being cut down and used by the locals. Though cutting so many trees at once, that alone could provoke the wrath of the herds. Such a process should be spread across a couple of seasons, and you can't be sure that was the case. In the west and north, the clearing turns into a wild forest. In the east, you see a road leading north. I leave the clearing. I go to the road leading north from the village. You're at the closed northern gate. The neglected road is partially overgrown. You hear a river in the east, separated by the lush meadow filled with crickets and rodents. Take a closer look at the gate. Pushed or pulled, it doesn't move an inch. Someone has spread dirt and rocks both underneath it and around it, seemingly to keep the planks stuck in the ground. I head to the river. You see a crunching family of boars, some of them brown, some black. You consider turning back, but they pay you little attention. After a couple grunts, they run north. The river is not too wide, yet unusually deep, with the banks altered by the locals for decades, if not centuries. The water is cold and clean, yet filled with long plants growing from the bottom. You would rather avoid jumping inside or drinking from it, but you're tempted to at least wash your face, neck, and hands. Dozens, if not hundreds, of small fish are looking for tasty leaves, but also try to avoid their predators. A dance of life, completely unaware of your presence. You suddenly realize there's something else buried among the kelp. A rusty sickle sticking out of the ground, a couple of stone axes and hoes. The wooden handles in a large wagon are covered with moss, but you recognize their shapes. Why would someone drop them here? On the opposite bank, the meadow turns into a thick forest, impenetrable for a rider. I turn back. I'll spend some time setting up a fish trap at the bank. You place the basket on the ground, then grab a bowl and start digging, looking for a few larger worms. You bait the stick and push it inside the basket, locking it between the sides, then cover the entrance with the lid. Tying it together takes you a few good moments, but will be easier later on. You attach the entire trap to a bush and push it into the stream, far enough that it sinks entirely. Who knows how long it will take before something large enough swims inside. Still, it would be better to not wait for too long, otherwise the prey may die of hunger. I wash myself in the river. The living stream filled with fish and plants won't help you much. Oh, okay, you need bathing equipment. Okay. Where can we go? Okay, now we can go around it. You enter the wetlands, with their many streams, ponds, and fish. Large birds run and fly between the gray, sparse trees that are covered with moss, mushrooms, and critters. For a human, it may be an unwelcoming and harsh realm, but the overwhelming swarms of insects prove that it's a realm full of life. The danger with teeth and claws is hidden below the water's surface. I stay away from the banks. This plant shouldn't be alive, not without leaves. It doesn't resemble the other trees of the wetlands. It's something else. You get off your horse and prepare your axe. The water is filled with dirt and dead plants, and it smells like an old corpse. The roots are spreading far, breaking through the water's surface. You don't see any saurians in the grasses or on the shore. You approach the table-like altar made of 3 limestone slabs. Were these rocks originally as formless as they are now? Or was there a point in time, centuries ago, when they were precisely shaped and decorated by masters of artistry? There's no way to tell. Haas is peacefully observing the dark grass and slapping flies with its tail. Whatever it is that you feel in the air, it's clear that your companion sees this place through very different eyes. I smile and scratch the bottom of its neck. Go ahead. I'll look around for just a moment. You don't see any creatures nor humans. I approach the altar. There's clumped dirt in the uneven nicks, fused by years of wind and rains. The bottom surface of the table is dusty, but you don't find any spiderwebs or mold, even though it's a perfect spot for them. The tree roots cling to the altar in many spots. They're firmly attached. You struggle to move them even by an inch. The cream-colored limestone is cold and smooth. Uh-oh. I try to make an offering. What do I even have? Travel tools, rope, gamson. We already have the fish trap set up. Leave Haas. I don't really have anything to leave, actually. And you give nothing. I look into the water. You step cautiously. Without knowing how deep it gets, you have to consider that a saurian could be camouflaged in the mud, waiting for a victim to get near. Since you don't plan to kneel down and drink, you're hoping to dodge a potential strike. Once you get closer, you start breathing again. While the water is dirty, it's also shallow. You see the vegetation, swimming insects, and even small fish. All of them stay away from the tree roots, which look like a spider web covering the bottom of the pond. Aside from that, you don't see anything that would catch your attention. I take a closer look at the roots. You kneel in front of one that's lying on the shore. It's brown and covered with hair that resembles that on your arm. When you touch it, it's moist, soft, and warmer than you'd expect. I do something with it. What should I do to the roots? Come on, what would you do to the roots, Water Seer? Nothing? You do nothing to the roots? Hmm. Well, let's do their example. See if we kick them. The root is flexible and stretchy. Your blunt hits sink into it like it's a pillow. Whenever you lean away, it returns to its original shape. So it's just a creepy tree. I stand up. Let's keep going. Let's go north. You slow down. Among the shrubs, a small pack of dragonlings is feasting on the carcass of a grey auroch. One of them, with red feathers on its arms, straightens up and gives you a curious glance. Its head tilts left and right, forward and back. It screeches at you, but doesn't move forward, and returns to its meal. You wonder what would happen if you were on foot. Would they let you be, satisfied with their prey, or would they run after you? But if so, for what reason? For now, you have enough space to move forward, yet stay safe. The powerful jaws break the monster's bones loudly, then bite off and swallow chunks of meat. I ride forward, but I keep my distance and look over my shoulder. The beaten road serves your palfrey well. The forest to your left becomes sparse and brighter, and there are dozens of human-made paths among the fruit-bearing trees. On your right, there's a large pasture with at least a dozen massive mouflons. 2 of them, already sheared, look comically small. Soon after that, you ride alongside vast, flourishing fields filled with rye, still green, preparing itself patiently for the second harvest. The path ends with a massive wooden gate. The stone wall separating you from the glow of lights behind it isn't as tall as the roofs, but you can't imagine climbing to its top. There are pretty much no cracks, no missing bricks, a sign of many hours of labor, especially considering how massive the settlement is, as wide as the city district. The birds and monkeys are now just a distant echo, replaced with the sounds of carts, running, hammers, saws, laughter, and shouts. Sigh, I don't feel comfortable in large settlements. Let's get this over with. A young man is leaning against the closed gate, covered by its shadow. He's young, tanned, and has a short, elegantly trimmed red beard. Beneath the green gambeson he wears an expensive tunic decorated with colorful trim. From his arm hangs a steel helmet, though the metal is so thin that it's mostly made of wool and leather. He moves into the light and takes on the posture of a disciplined soldier, not a mercenary. He's standing upright, with his chin up. There are 2 weapons on the ground. Leaning on the wooden beams of the gate, an axe made of steel and a wooden club. He doesn't reach for either. You dismount smoothly, still having some vigor left. Haas holds his tail high. A narrow path leads north, toward 2 field workers, one with a hoe and one with a pitchfork. They wave to you. You can't see their faces, but their clothes are simple, gray pants and vests made from hemp and wool. I wave back, why not? They talk for a bit, looking toward you and pointing at your mount, then walk away, disappearing behind the wall's corner. The guard smiles, yet avoids your eyes, and has to clear his throat before he speaks. Welcome, traveler. If you're here to make trouble, If you're not here to make trouble, Hallersden welcomes you. We have the whitest flower there is. When he bows, you realize it's a well-practiced performance. If it's new garments you're looking for, you can order everything you need right here, in all colors, shapes, and sizes. Capes, boots, vests, robes, or if you're yourself a master of the needle, I can assure you we have the fabric you're looking for. His act is over and he glances at your mount in a moment of silence. His eyes get wider as he observes it with a childlike fascination. This is Haas. It helps me patrol the roads. You can pet its side if you want, but no sudden movements. He follows your instructions, even though your palfrey pays no attention to the man's careful touch. The guard grins widely. I'm Dane, your new Roadwarden. I want to see your mare. A city folk, eh? The mare is busy, but I'll ask her. Give us a moment to let you in. He knocks at the gate, which is then pulled inwards by 2 other guards, a man and a woman, wearing their own gambesons, similarly green, but tailor-made to match their figures. The nearby buildings are simple houses made of wooden beams and covered with thatch, while the storehouse is even more modest, with a roof made of planks. The watchtower has a ladder made of ropes and sticks, no stairs. Just give me a moment. The guard strides away before he finishes the last word. The others close the gate behind you and observe your mount carefully. Your eyes run east to a humming creek running through the center of the village. I wait for the return of the messenger. Calming sound, eh? That's Howler's Creek. The guard, like most of the locals, is taller than you. Wide but shallow. There's never been a flood in years. Pa told me there used to be nae bridges. Neighbors crossed it with their boots in their hands. And 'tis clean like a raindrop. But there are never, I think that's how they say it, never many fish. We're the cleanest village in the north. Her companion chuckles brightly. When the guard returns, he's still alone. She can come now. A friend of mine is in labor, aye? The mayor wants to be there when the child arrives, but I was asked to show you the village. So his knees like not or never. I nod. Fine. He approaches the watchtower. Tie your mount here. We'll keep the kids away. Most of the neighbors are getting ready to celebrate. Once you're done, he grabs the rope ladder. The view from up there is gorgeous. Wow. I don't think he's trap type, but I climb after him. Even though the ladder swings in all directions, the guard gets to the top quickly, like a monkey climbing up creepers. You, on the other hand, need to stop and wait for the ladder to calm itself. When you join the man on the wooden platform, you're a bit dizzy. He's leaning on the wooden parapet, observing the area with a smile. I look around. See? There's ne'er a place like Howler's Den. The guard points in every direction, giving you no time to contemplate. The next few minutes he describes the fields and their crops, the flocks in the pastures, and the shepherds inspecting the fences. The ancient garden of trees and bushes, larger than the village itself. The sunlight dancing on the stream to its own tune. If you are to believe everything he describes, this place has access to everything in abundance. The sweetest honey, the most fragrant bread, the softest wool. In the beer, 'tis excellent. He sounds like a city merchant who's trying to sell an old house. No wonder he's so proud. Why wouldn't he be? They've tamed this scrap of land and live in comfort. The island in the middle connects both parts of the village. Islet. According to the man, the northern gate is hardly ever opened, as it leads nowhere now. Near the eastern gate, there's the 8 Ale Inn, where you can find a bed and victuals. And there's the stall where Akakios, I think, rewards our work, unless we annoy him with pointless talk. He lets out a chuckle. On the opposite side of the creek, there's another white house. It belongs to Bion, the best clothier in the north. The priests live in the southeast, near the wall, but they do not talk to strangers. You also hear about the hunter, the cooper, the fisher, the miller. The pie maker lives with his sister, the baker. The smith and her husband, the carpenter, live with their kids. Some of the larger buildings could accommodate 2, maybe even 3 generations at once. There could be more than 100 dwellers here. You consider stopping his speech, but he suddenly points at the islet again. There, see? The mayor's coming, the one wearing purple. You're free to join her, traveler. I nod and climb down. You try to get down quickly, but 2 steps are enough to make you sure that it's a bad idea. You wait for the ladder to find its balance. You're relieved when you touch the ground again. You untie your palfrey and follow the guard. You pass a small pasturage surrounded by a wooden fence, a few loose chickens, and a tethered boar. The fancier buildings are covered with whitewashed coatings and surrounded with vegetables, herbs, and flowers. The bridges are wide enough to carry even a wagon, but for hoss walking on the wooden beams is far from pleasant. The islet is empty, but you notice an empty stall painted with the shapes of colorful flowers. I walk over the second bridge. Along the entire path, you notice more and more people, observing you, smiling, or casually greeting you as they're focused on their own tasks. Finally, you reach the main square. A large tree grows in the center, surrounded by dark water, held together by a thin wall, perfect for sitting, but the smell coming from the liquid makes you think of rotten eggs. The plant reminds you of the tree you saw in the south, next to the swamp altar. In the north, you see the Ape Ale Inn, judging by the tables, stools, and benches outside of it. It's open for guests. The villagers are chatting and dining loudly, and you catch their curious glances. On the side of the dining area, the merchant is arguing with a tall, broad-shouldered worker. An old man is sitting by himself, eating a pie, with a walking stick leaning against the table. A young woman is cleaning the empty mugs in the creek, speaking with a man at least twice her age, maybe her father. I need a spot to tether Haas. There's a wide wooden roof right next to the gate that shelters carts, crates, and sacks. You move your mount next to a donkey to a beam placed here just for this purpose. Without a moment of hesitation, Haas starts to chew on a nearby haystack. You have some time to make sure he doesn't struggle with your bundles. You return to the inn. I look for the mare and approach her. She's sitting on a chair with a 4-year-old boy on her knees. She's holding his hand gently, showing him how to eat gruel from a bowl. It's not a cheap meal, though. You spot nuts, berries, and milk, and the added honey makes it yellowish. The kid is clean and quiet, and once he notices your arrival, he crams his mouth with a spoonful of oats. Now, love, the mare titters. Do not get distracted, she rubs the meal off his face. A few more spoons, and you'll go help Papa in the kitchen, eh? She gives you a radiant, though apologetic smile, then turns her attention back to her companion. I observe her more closely. Her long, full-sleeved linen dress must have been dyed once in blue and once in red to achieve its dark, fancy purple, which would draw looks even in Havlavan. From her left shoulder hangs a green woolen cape as thin as a shawl. The brown belt on her waist has a large steel buckle that portrays a running deer with unrealistically large antlers, growing in all directions like tree branches. Unlike her tribesfolk, she's pale, with powdered and robed cheeks. Rouged cheeks? I know I've seen the word, I never had to pronounce that before. And her lips match her outfit, though they're a bit closer to wine red. The thick, gray strands in her long, blonde hair look more like a fashion choice than a result of aging. Her eyes are the color of her cape, keen and vigorous. She's shorter than most people around, though would still be the tallest woman in most of the northern settlements. While she's around 40, her slim hands add fragility to her appearance, even though her posture is upright, her legs confidently crossed, and her delicate voice assertive. She makes plenty of gestures, but her shoulders hardly ever move. I wait first. I need no invitations. I sit down on a bench. Oh. Just a moment, please. She glances at you harshly and puts the boy on the ground. I'm sorry, love, but I need to speak with our guests, darling. She addresses one of the inn workers, a girl close to 15. Take him to father, will you? Her tone suddenly gets firmer, leaving no hint of a question or suggestion. Yes, Ma, she responds. Both her hair and her eyes are nothing like those of her brother, and neither of the kids resemble their mother. The flowing water hits silently the rocks and wooden stakes surrounding the aisle, then splits into 2 stream beds. In Havlavan, the river is surrounded by tall walls protecting the banks from deterioration, and the water is seldom free of dirt. Here, the smell is as fresh as it would be in the woods. So, we have a Roadwarden again. The plant reminds you of the tree you saw in the south, next to the swamp altar. I'm sure you're hungry. My husband will bring us something soon. I appreciate it. Do need mention it. Hunger makes me peevish, and the day is too nice for that. She taps her chest and looks at a flock of birds that fly above you loudly, heading south. As we're waiting, be so good as to help me understand something. Eva, if you're but a mercenary, I can't imagine a single reason for you to choose this realm for your wardening, ni so long after Asterian's disappearance. There's never glory or treasures to find here. Her pale fingers form a tent on her stomach, then clasp, leaving the forefingers pointing at you. You were sent here by the merchants. They want the peninsula. simply explain the situation. You introduce yourself and confirm your suspicions. The guild and the deputy are in agreement. They are willing to send troops to this place, defend the settlements, and patrol the roads. They'd cover their pay. You'd only have to look after their board and lodging. You explain that the rate of taxes is open to negotiations, but they would be taken twice a year, in spring and fall. You have time to think about it, you assure her, and you're free to consult with your people. Safer roads bring many travelers, artisans, and merchants. I know you realize it's an opportunity. Yes, I do, she finally interrupts you, but roads bring other people as well, not all of them desired by us. As she observes your palfrey, she twists her deer buckle left and right, left and right. The times have changed, and your superiors were kind enough to send a messenger, not a temple guard with a list of demands. She grasps the buckle with her fist, but when it comes to the guild, there's always a catch. Her accent is now almost identical to the one used in the city. I'm telling you everything I know. Can't ask you to trust me, but I'm not hiding anything. Even if I were eager to put trust in the words of a stranger, your honesty has nothing to do with the truth, necessarily. It doesn't put me in an easy position, as you can imagine. Here, listen to this trick I learned about during my studies. She theatrically clears her throat, patting her chest with one hand and covering her mouth with another, then leans forward and rests on her elbows, allowing her hands to freely make gestures. You make a deal with the settlement, flour and wool in exchange for coin and tools. You send the first traders, and they imply that you're ready to pay more for, let's say, parchment. Months later, you want no more rye, just the parchment and wool. We can't butcher any more mouflons, the locals say. Don't worry, you answer. We'll send you a small flock. Just turn one of your fields into a pasturage. As she pretends to speak as different characters, her voice comically shifts, and she has no issue switching between accents. I encourage her with a kind smile. She swings her hand above the table. Another year goes by, and while there's more parchment, the village lacks some crops. The tribe needs not just tools and coins, plenty of coins, but also seeds, and the guild is not satisfied. Sending our wagons costs a lot, and there are more highwaymen now. If you want us to come again, you need more mouflons, and to sell us their cheese. And guess what? With a haunting laugh, she straightens up and spreads her arms like someone a third her age. Turns out that the village can't say no anymore. They lack supplies, seeds, and land. They can't refuse. I smile. I have no doubt that a smart leader like yourself is going to protect your people from these games. Maybe it's better to stay silent. I nod. She's right, and it's better not to say anything stupid. Pause doesn't linger for long. I see we understand each other. Let's finish the introductions. I'm Thais, one of the keepers of the 8th Ale Inn and the mayor of Hallersdale. I assume it would be convenient for you to take my answer back to Hoblevon. She wonders for a moment. Say, when could we expect the first caravan? After winter? It depends on what you can sell and what you want in return. While the conversation goes on, food gets served. The refreshing aroma of roasted mutton, covered with a thick sauce made of mint, parsley, and honey, tempts you to bite in right away. The juices are sinking into the round trencher, a plate made of simple brown bread. There's also a small bowl filled with chopped red radishes and a sliced boiled egg, and a mug filled with cold buttermilk. It's all brought by a few young people, all of them referring to the mare as their mother, and in the end, the innkeeper himself shows up to wish you a good meal. He's wearing a clean orange tunic and a not-so-clean apron made of hemp. He politely introduces himself as Eric's, and after confirming you won't get sick from what he prepared, he leaves you and his wife to your conversation. Thais tears the meat into smaller pieces and then eats slowly, often expressing her enjoyment with a hum. Meanwhile, we get to the important stuff. Sounds like the nearby ground is fertile. The village would gladly pay its taxes in grain and vegetables, with the expectation that a squad of soldiers would provide additional protection. Our youth is strong, she claims proudly, so we don't need your guards on our walls, but a lone Roadwarden won't keep the roads passable. We need fighters willing to patrol the paths, maybe even the heart of the woods. That's what we'd expect in return. You're not an expert when it comes to linen, cheese, and wool, so the mayor spends a good couple of minutes describing the outstanding quality of what the village has to offer, especially the clothes, which are meant to be as unique as those made by Master Crispus. You vaguely recognize the name of this tailor shoemaker, but you've never earned enough to pay him for as much as a single sleeve. And of course, we will never reject some steel and bronze. We lack allies for sickles and scythes. She then repeats her question about starting a trade route. Truth be told, the guild is not sure what the peninsula has to offer. It's going to take more than your village to convince them. Understandable, but you won't find much in the other tribes. They have barely enough to survive, even after they trade for our crops. For we have the only decent soil in this realm. At least the people of Gale Rocks have salt and barrels of fish, while Creeks sells meat and wood. Actually, if you haven't been in Creeks yet, the furthest village in the northeast, you could give them a chance. She nods with a smile. They could use your help with keeping their roads safe. White marshes, on the other hand, as well as old Pagos, are close to worthless. For a trade route, that is. She clears her throat. After these words, she stands up, walks to another table, and offers her trencher to an elderly man who sits there by himself. With a trembling voice, he thanks her, then starts to chew on the soggy bread. She sits down, wipes her hands with a clean cloth, adjusts the folds of her cape, and once again crosses her legs. So tell me, Dane, how's Hovlavon? I haven't gathered much news since the invasion. Things stay humble, but are starting to look brighter. The harbor is full of life and the kids grow strong. I was hoping to hear that. Her smile shines with kindness. I thought they were done for, losing all those ships and getting cut off from so many tribes. I'm surprised the soldiers didn't butcher all the priests and traders to fill their stomachs. It felt so unavoidable that I even came back home, afraid for my life. But I still carry memories of that place, most of them warm. I'm glad the others haven't given up. Her smile fades away and she speaks without looking in your direction, giving you a moment of rest. The first time I crossed the city walls and saw the streets, my soul saw them as if they were made of dragon bones, not stone. All those people and the noise and hide houses and this life happening all around me. But after only 2 years, everything collapsed. For the first time in human memory, like a burning dollhouse. She pauses, rests her hands on her stomach, and then turns back to you. But don't let me drag you away from your duties. How can I help you, Dane? I'm looking for Asterion. She stares you in the eyes, then turns toward Haas. Is your palfrey a mare? We have 2 jacks. Could use some mules. A stallion, so I won't give you anything stronger than a hinny. So I've heard. Her eyes wander over the square. That the small donkey bellies bring weak offspring to horses. Her pale fingers reach for her own stomach. When her eyes return to you, they regain their sharpness. I'd rather avoid long talks about that man. Let him remain as a part of the past spring. Since you're asking about him, I can only assume he was indeed sharing his goal with yours. I know nothing about it. I'll get paid for finding him, that's all. You sit without a word, listening to the creak until she sighs exaggeratedly. Why are you doing this to me, traveler? Now I have to figure out if you're lying or simply wrong. But back to your question. She takes a deep breath. Asterion is not welcome here, and I don't know where he went. What are his wrongdoings? If you have to know, he failed and won't get a second chance. He was meant to escort Aegidia, a daughter of mine, to her betrothed in Gale Rocks. She was a great archeress, and the road from here to the coast is not that dangerous. When they saw goblins on the road, Asterion ordered her to push through, right into their trap. She touches her deer-shaped buckle. They got jumped like a bunch of wealthy pilgrims. A Roadwarden worth their gruel should know better. He can fight with a blade, but my girl, she never had a chance. She sighs and looks at the gate. He disappeared soon after his pitiful attempt at apologizing to me, and we closed our doors behind him, for good. I'll let you know if he ever tries to return. Any idea where I can look for him? She adjusts her cape with an annoying shrug. Try asking for him in the north. He spent most of his time between White Marshes, Gale Rocks, and Creeks. Here, he wasn't then eager to share his plans. Why did you let him leave? He didn't do anything, well, forbidden by our laws. He was simply stupid and cannot be trusted. But this isn't Hovlavon. We have no rich folk to dread. We treat each other fairly. Lost in her thoughts, she rubs the neckline of her dress. One good thing I can say about him is that he didn't try to justify his decisions, or to avoid the consequences. But I'd rather have him prove first he can do what is asked of him. Did you ever find your daughter? For a few breaths, her green eyes seek something in your face. Her words are careful, yet hesitant. She's with the fogs now. The goblins were after food, so they carried her shell away. One day she's going to charge at our walls, awoken and empty. Even though she was a bit mawkish, her heart was strong and patient. She listened to people, was ready to help them and to cry with them. I could tell you stories, but what for? Let the dead rest. You have quite a big family. She titters weakly. At one point, there were 12 kids living in our house, 9 girls, 3 boys. They come and go, as it should be. A few are already with the forest, but most are all grown now, even started their own families. She looks away, at a girl wiping spilled milk with a wet cloth. To be perfectly clear, they aren't exactly our children. It's a custom of our village for the mayor to look after the orphans. Thankfully, Eric's has a big heart and much more patience than I do. As she speaks, her smile widens. Thanks for the help. I wonder, back in Hovlavon, did you spend any time in Backwood Corner? It used to be this dark, dirty alley with muggers working even in daylight. I stayed there with Octavia, the miller, in exchange for doing chores for her. She had this small wooden hut. See, this is interesting. Like, you don't actually know. You get to build the story. It would make you feel like you're in the old days. The Boarhead Inn is almost 50 years old now. You explain that while the place is still called the bad part of the city, the Boarhead makes good coin selling beer and ale to students, mercenaries, and adventurers. The whole land may turn wild one day. You quote one of the local traders, but Backwood Corner will stay the same. She sighs with relief and puts her left hand on her hip. Comforting, don't you think? That there are these places, these dark corners, where you can always find what you expect. Living there, though? That sounds awful. It always was. She chuckles. I bet the thugs of my youth are no longer around, so I wouldn't count on them giving me a free pass. But I wish I could have a chance to drink a mug or two with the innkeeper once more. The old lady was always too good to stay in that muck. Okay. I think that's a good enough stopping point. We can come back tomorrow and question her some more, because there's a lot of questions. This is super dialogue heavy, which is what I wanted, but man, I need to keep more drink around so my throat doesn't go dry. Anyway, quick save, hard save. And with that, I will leave you for today. I will be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. Central Time for some more Roadwarden. Thanks for hanging out, sticking around, and hope you have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday.